Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. Today we're diving into financial reports filled with corporate jargon, so get ready for a wild ride of numbers. Have you ever felt like companies are speaking a different language into plain English? First, this is a semi-annual report from a bunch of Calamos funds ending in April. Think of it like a mid-year checkup for your investments. Only instead of a doctor, we have accountants. We will be decoding what this means. So what's the big picture? These are closed-end funds, meaning they issue a fixed number of shares. Calamos wants to reassure investors by providing a predictable income. It focuses on what the companies are paying out as distributions, which might be income, short-term capital gains, or sometimes even returning your capital. Basically, they're trying to keep things steady and reliable for the shareholders. For instance, Calamos Convertible Opportunities and Income Fund is paying out about 9.5 cents per share each month. What's important is that this number shouldn't be the only reason to invest in one of these things. Let's talk numbers. Think of this section as your personal balance statement, but for the company. For Calamos Convertible Opportunities and Income Fund, which we mentioned before, they listed investments at a value of just over one-term debts. That said, overall, their net assets, which is assets minus debt, is over 723 million in cash. Important to note is that it also has long-term debts. That said, overall, their net assets, which is assets minus debt, is over 723 million in cash. Important to note is that it also has long-term debts. That said, overall, their net assets, which is assets minus debt, is over 723 million in cash. Important to note is that it also has long-term debts. That said, overall, their net assets, which is assets minus debt, is over 723 million in cash. Important to note is that it also has long-term debts. That said, overall, their net assets, which is assets minus debt, is over 733 million. Moving along down the document, another important financial statement is the statement of operations. This tells you how well these funds are performing, zooming in on Calamos Convertible Opportunities and Income Fund again. Total investment income was nearly 12 million, but also they have expenses totaling almost 16 million, which gives them a net $4 million loss in total investment income fund. Again, total investment income was nearly 12 million, but also they have expenses totaling almost 16 million, which gives them a net $4 million loss in total investment income. Later in the statement, and more broadly speaking, net decreases in net assets as a result of operations overall cost them 18 million. I know it seems bad, but this is how it is. Next key info comes from the statement of changes in net assets. Here we see what's making them money. So for that same Calamos Convertible Opportunities and Income Fund, they had proceeds from shares sold totaling around 17.6 million. They also reinvested distributions, basically. Shareholders decided to use money that was earned and reinvest it for 3.8 million more. Overall, the total decrease in net assets was 36 million that was earned and reinvested for 3.8 million more. Overall, the total decrease in net assets was 36 million as they are on paper. Now let's check out the major items in the statement of cash flow statement. Cash flow. This part really shows how money moved around. Most important is the cash that came from operations, which tells you whether it was actually doing things like trading to make money. For the fund, the Calamos Convertible Opportunities and Income Fund, we continue to single out the operating activities provided 89 don to 8 million cash. Keep in mind some of the numbers here, such as net investment income, aren't actually cash, since the account also calculates paper assets. The final section is the highlights, where a few metrics area broken down per share, which is more valuable for the individual investors. So the net asset value per share started around $10 and end up a bit lower at 9.32 cents. A drop of approximately 8%. The total investment return tells you more about that value proposition and has a return of negative 2%. Now, digging super deep a bit, the cost to manage the fund was 420% per year, which is what you should expect to pay these types of funds. What goes to you is what's after this number. Keep in mind that there are other financial products out there, and maybe you should consider those instead. Let's talk about someone else's debt. At the end of the period looked at in this document, the company had around $300 million in debt from notes payable and more than $100 million coming from some preferred shares. You should really speak to a financial expert to understand what these actually mean long term. Alright, that's our breakdown of a small piece of something Calamos did. I feel like I was speaking numbers to you. What's your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this translation was valuable to you, hit that like button because there are a lot more reports to dig in still. Also, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description if you want to decode together. See you next time.